Before we really dig in, I was wondering if you could tell me about you, and you are the Chief Civility Officer at TrainXtra. What is TrainXtra, and what is your role in the company as Chief Civility Officer?
Yeah, I know. I love that title. I got a little creative with it, I have to say. But so TrainXtra is a company that I founded 3 years ago in November of 2017. And I gave myself that title, Chief Civility Officer, because my goal with starting the company, I have an employment law background. So I'm a licensed attorney in California. I got licensed in 2003. And since then, I've been dealing with employment law. So I've been focused in on employment law. For a number of years, I was in court representing management. And I found that being a litigator really wasn't the right fit for me in that I had a passion for training. So I found myself trying to resolve conflict and educate people on what they should or shouldn't have done in the workplace. And so after my son was born, I decided, you know what, I want to, coming in as a defense attorney after a lawsuit was filed or a complaint was filed was too late for me to really be able to do anything to help organizations or employees. So Train Extra was founded because I want to, I believe that training is a very important component to creating civility in the workplace. And so that's what I'm doing now is as a chief civility officer, just working with companies and helping them improve their workplace culture.
So you've come to your work and you have a really interesting origin story. And I'm wondering if you would be so kind as to take our audience back to when you were younger, when you were a teenager, um, growing up in the Chicago area. What happened back then that has gotten Sejal Thakkar to this point today?
Yeah, it's, when they say that saying, Dan, when they say, everything happens for a reason and
Right.
everything that's happened in my life has brought me here. And it's so true. It goes all the way back there. So my parents, so it goes all the way to the beginning. So I was actually conceived in India and I was born in Chicago. So I was came out being in the middle of the American and the Indian culture. So I was dealing with a lot of stuff that was going on at home where my parents came to this country for a better future for their children, for same thing with a lot of immigrants that come here. And so I had a lot of kind of growing up, a lot of my parents not understanding the American culture, wanting me to abide by the Indian culture and the tradition and the values. And then me also loving the American culture and that being a part of who I am. And so I was always sort of helping to communicate with my parents about and explain to them like why the American culture is this way. And then I was always explaining to people outside of the house why the Indian culture is this way. So all of that started from me, early on.
Mhm.
And then what made it even, why I wanted to get into the legal field really was because I experienced harassment and discrimination myself at a very young age. As I mentioned, my parents came from India. We were the only Indian family living in a suburb of Chicago called Elmwood Park, which was predominantly Italian. And so, I was othered right off the
Yeah.
bat. We were different. And so I dealt with a lot of harassment and discrimination growing up at a very young age. And so, my childhood was rough. And it's something that a lot of immigrant children go through in this country. We're automatically othered. And so I was always sort of, you know, defending myself, standing up for myself, and being a person from the outside at a very young age. I was always, how do I see the other people and how do I help explain different perspectives? So I started taking on that role because of the discrimination and harassment I went through as well. And that led me to my legal career. I knew I was going to be a lawyer very young because and I talk about this, a lot in some of the podcasts I've done. But
Mhm.
when my dad would always tell me, Sejal, you're going to be a lawyer because you ask way too many questions. And most kids ask a lot of questions. I have an 8-year-old, so I know. But apparently, I was really, really annoying and excessive with my asking questions. That my dad was around 8 or 9. He was like, she's going to be a lawyer. So I did. I mean, I knew I was going to be an attorney the whole way through. And so what I'd gone through, my social justice, sort of need for advocacy and helping, underrepresented or marginalized groups be heard and not feel like outsiders, all led me to law school, which then led me to being an employment lawyer. And then that's kind of where things started to shift a little bit for me in my life, is that part of my journey, is after I actually got licensed and started practicing. A lot of the things that I had thought or believed in my mind before I got to this point were shattered, you
So
know.
let's talk about that. And I'll relate it only to my own case. You seek work, and sometimes you get into that workspace and you get the clients that you least expect.
Mm.
For me, I worked for a very large tobacco company. I was on the agency side, and every day I would have to justify the fact that I was making a very good living supporting a company that had a product that could make people sick or kill them, right?
Mm.
Now, you had clients that were accused of some impropriety in a labor situation. So while my situation is not apples to yours, it must have created some longing in you
Mm.
to make a change. I first was wondering if you could describe for me what that was like, representing clients who discriminated others or in a workplace situation created problems.
Yeah, no, your example is actually, I mean, I completely resonate and relate with that situation, because it's two-sided. Went through during that period. One was sort of what you're talking about, is me coming to terms with my own belief system, my own biases, my own prejudices, and figuring out like there's no way that I can be an effective attorney and represent people unless I deal with that myself, right? And so I had to go through that part of doing that, dealing with my own biases in order for me to be that person. So that was a whole another part of the situation. But then the other side of it too is now representing people. I expected to see a lot of malicious or intentionally, racist or sexist people because of what I'd gone through. And
Mm.
so what I found though, and there was a few of those, don't get me wrong, I definitely had my fair share of dealing with those cases. But what I found was that a majority of the cases that I was working on was actually good people,
Mhm.
well-intentioned people that were coming to work. They were trying to do the best that they could, both on the employer side as well as the employee side. But then they were put into these situations and just didn't have the tools to navigate through those difficult situations, whether it's dealing with a difficult person, a different person, someone who is other, just it could be a lot of different reasons why, but people just didn't have the tools to navigate through these situations at work. And so when people aren't empowered and don't know how to deal with these situations, then they do a couple of different things, right? They say, okay, you know what? I'm just not going to deal with this situation. It'll just go away. And when you were talking about workplace civility, for example, it never goes away. That behavior is going to continue and continue. It's going to fester until it turns into a conflict, right? So we have to give people the skills to deal with those situations, right? So going back to then working on these cases, right? I often found myself saying, how do I help? How do I help in this situation? And so it really became clear to me that education and training, because when we all have different lived experiences, we've gone and lived differently, different religions, different upbringings, we're going to bring all of that with us to work. And that doesn't mean you're better than me or it's just that we're different. And so we need to know how to deal with our differences and how to navigate through these situations. And it's we expect people to just have this common sort of shared language or shared approach or shared skill set when they come to work, and we're just making assumptions. We got to stop making these assumptions and really equip people to deal with these situations.